Hello, my name is John Reynolds. Welcome to Extraordinary Life Stories. On this episode, I'm talking with David Lloyd. David is a former professional tennis player and a highly successful entrepreneur in the world of sports and fitness. As a player, David represented Great Britain in both singles and doubles, achieving notable victories and playing in prestigious tournaments like Wimbledon. After his playing days, David channeled his passion for sports, founding David Lloyd Leisure, a chain of sports clubs that transformed the fitness industry. His entrepreneurial vision for creating high-quality, family-friendly clubs grew into a massive success and a household name with over 100 locations across the UK and worldwide. I'm really looking forward to talking with David, so let's get into it. David, thank you so much for joining me.
Nice to be here.
Tell me, who is David Lloyd?
Well, I'm a family man. First of all, I've got 5 kids and 9 grandkids.
Keeps you busy.
So that's exceptionally important to my life. I've been fortunate enough to play Davis Cup for my country, and I also was the captain of the Davis Cup team, the Whiteman Cup team. And there's about 110 clubs around the world that still have my name. So I'm very proud of that. And I've been exceptionally lucky in meeting some incredible people. Maggie Thatcher opened my club in Finchley. I play golf with Donald Trump. Elton John and Cliff Richard learned their tennis at my club. So I've been really lucky to meet some great people.
You've made your own luck as well. Take me back to a young David, the aspirations and the kind of who and what influenced your career and life decisions.
Well, when I was young, I wanted to be a footballer, but I injured my knee.
How old were you at that point?
About 11. I was a good footballer, and I got injured, and my knee was a thing called osteochondritis, so it's a big bump on your knee that you can't touch. So I learned to fish, because that's about the only thing I could do. But anyway, so cut a long story short, my knee really never got better, so I went into tennis. And so my dad was a tennis coach, and
had you shown an interest in tennis before, seeing as your dad was a tennis coach?
I was, but not as much as football. I loved football. You know, the reason I love football is that I love to bodily contact. I love to have contact, and I love to run around and shout and scream like that. But tennis, obviously, you couldn't do that. But tennis was in the family, and I went into tennis.
And although you had focused on football, had you been knocking about with a dad who's...
so you
had a standard of tennis
My mum and dad both played tennis. He was a very good sportsman, so was my mum. She came from Durham. She was one of 12, minor family, and lovely, lovely people. And it was the only thing spoken about in the house was tennis. The only time you didn't really want to be in our house was on a Sunday when mum played against dad, and whoever won, there was a row. But it was the only thing in the house was tennis. So I went into tennis.
In a sort of funny way, with your knee occurring, they actually probably enjoyed you getting into the tennis side of things.
Well, it turned out, luckily, to be the right move. So, you know, we to pay for my tennis, I left school early. I left school before I took my exams, so I've got no exams to my name. And I worked in a sports shop not so far from here called Peters and Knight, and I learned how to sell sports goods, practice in the afternoon and plays, and then I did pretty well. So I was probably, if not the first or second junior in the world at that stage. So
when did you get that feeling from injuring your knee to then getting into tennis to then kind of leaving school and so on? When did you know it was a career? When did you feel like this is something I can do?
Well, it was career out without money. That's when my dad was really a brave man to allow me not to do my education, because in tennis, when I started, was amateur. So, you know, you had to jump a chair for a bet to get paid. So it was that type of situation.
How it's changed.
Yes, now it's changed. Well, I wish I was a bit older, but anyway, he encouraged me, which was incredible. So we didn't have a lot of money. So I hitchhiked around the world, around Britain, going from tournament to tournament, and eventually got better and travelled the world. So it's been a great experience. I can only say tennis is a great game. You meet a lot of fantastic people.
And it has changed so much, right? I mean, and of all people to be able to ask that, what are the biggest changes? And I know, of course, the money's different, and the way that the media, we can consume, you know, the kind of matches, watch them anywhere in the world and so on. But what would you say are the biggest changes from when you were playing to now?
Well, now it's like all sports. I mean, these people are now superstars. I mean, Djokovic is a superstar. Federer is a superstar. The same in football. Ronaldo is a super. I mean, I think I read the other day, Ronaldo's got something like 64 million followers on whatever he follows. But because I don't do any of that stuff. But yeah, it's that plus they all have a trainer, they all have a dietitian, they all have everything.
Have a whole team around,
the whole
right?
team, yeah. I mean, we just played, and we would have a beer with the guy you're going to play the next day, and then on court you wanted to win as bad as they do now, but it was very different.
And you've also had the coaching side of things, Tim Henman. So you kind of came through your journey as a player, the success that you had, the way that the game was at that time, to then kind of coming into the sort of professional era to then what is now. So, how was it from being a player to then actually kind of coming in and helping someone and managing someone like Tim?
Oh, it was great. I mean, I played in two eras because when I started it was amateur, then it became professional. And so, you learn all these things. And when you played tennis and you've really struggled to get there, that is enormously important to put back into young kids. So I met a guy called Jim Slater, who was Slater Walker, the financier, and he came to me and he said, I want to start some tennis because I did it with chess and I want to make some tennis players. And the LTA, which is the governing body, which my son now runs, by the way, so I can't say too many bad things about it, I want to make tennis players and I want to really do it professionally. I said, great, we're in. And so we started this scheme and we went round, we used the Daily Mail as a paper to find players, and we looked for players, and Tim was one of the kids we chose. He was only 9.5 when he came onto the scheme. We put him into the boarding school, and we had we were way in front of our time. We measured them for height, we had dietitians, we had army people training them, and so that's what they had, and it was
so
very,
it's your
very
fault
professional.
That it's all gone this way then. You say how much has changed, you've influenced it.
Yeah,
It's not your fault, you've influenced it.
And we had great fun. We had 12 kids. Obviously Tim became the best of those 12, but we had people like Jaime Delgado, who coached Murray, coached everybody, and he's made a lot of money at it. Was a great world doubles player. The greatest success of the scheme was the ones that actually didn't make it. They've all turned out incredibly good people. In fact, one of the players that didn't make it, Adrian, he's actually now the head teacher at Reed School, is where the scheme started.
I love that.
So that,
there was a
nurturing, to me, is proud.
Yeah, there was an education element.
Absolutely.
Which doesn't happen enough in sport. Like these kids that aspire to be a footballer, but go all the way to maybe 16, 17, 18, and then academy,
drop off because they don't know what to do.
And they start their identity, and they have. But if they understand that they've learned so much about the value of the physical fitness complementing the mental fitness and all the other stuff they learn in the academy, it does make them really formidable, probably ahead of their peers. But the fact that they've not got that nurturing to allow them to know that that loss of identity, they need to get past it.
Well, that's why we chose Reed School. The headmaster was fantastic there. He saw that this was a scheme that would be great for the school. Now that Reed School now is one of the tennis places to go to. So it started from no tennis to now being one of the schools to go to,
what a legacy.
Which is great. They've got indoor courts now, and that is terrific. And he saw that. So what he did, he allowed my kids, the Slater kids, to leave school at 2:00 every day, and that's when we took them to the tennis. But they had to do their education, had to do their homework. So they were, it was a really, it worked out very well.
Totally, and that's a great balance, right? Because there's often not enough sport and all that goes with the benefits of sport. There's how many people that have been successful in sport, including yourself, that have been very successful in business. And I wanted to relate that to you because you mentioned when you were talking about the academy, the kind of being ahead of your time and that entrepreneurial side of things. When did David Lloyd start thinking about beyond hitting a ball with a racket? Because it feels like one of the things you touched on a couple of times is the contacts and the people. You're a very personable, you're a lovely guy. And it feels like that was always something that potentially you were building a network that has been incredibly useful to you. And you've also been entrepreneurial enough to be successful with that. But were you thinking that through your tennis career?
I thought that sports people like myself should they shouldn't retire, wait 2 or 3 years and then go back into it because your name's gone. And so I did it. I started the dream. It was a dream because when I travelled the world, I kept seeing all these beautiful indoor courts and everybody happy and smiling because even if it was raining, they could play. I thought, oh, I've got to do that. And so every
and that wasn't.
No, we didn't have any.
It wasn't at all, right. So
we didn't have any.
So your travelling experience and the way your brain was thinking, you were already thinking, I can do this.
Absolutely. I worked in Canada in 1976 and I saw all these people enjoying it. I thought, I'm going to do that. I went everywhere. I saw everything. And I was still playing at the same time. And I picked all the good bits, in my head, the good bits, and then put them into one and then went back and thought, right, now I'll raise the money. Well, because I hadn't got any education, I used to walk into these meetings with all these lovely merchant bankers, and they used to look at me, where did you go to school? I said, well, I actually didn't. So they said, oh. So it was an incredible period of time for 2 years where this ex-tennis player with a reasonably good reputation went around trying to raise this money. And they all looked at me like I was a complete moron, to be quite honest.
David Lloyd couldn't get funding for what is now. Most of these bankers are probably members of.
No, I went to all these places. I went to all these meetings, and you know what? They said, "Oh, where did you go to school?" I said, "Well, I didn't." So when we one meeting, a very famous bank at the time said to me, one of the chaps said, "Oh," he said, "Where's the nearest bus stop?" So I looked at him. And I said, because I couldn't care what I said, I said, well, do you play golf? The guy, I took a punt, most people. He said, yes, I play golf. So I said, but how do you get to your golf club? He says, I go by car. I said, that's strange. They're going to come to my club by car. So it was an amazing...
Again, you were way ahead of your time.
Yeah, but then people threw money at you. As soon as you're open, everything was going well, everybody went, oh, do you want more money? Do you want to do this?
So you proved concept.
Yeah, I mean.
Did you prove that? Did you? Where was the first David Lloyd?
Heston.
Heston. Why did you choose Heston?
I knew that I had to be on a main motorway area, and because I'd done my homework, and I knew then the M25 was coming. So I just basically saw the circle around London, said, right, I'm going to absolutely put a pin in every arterial road off the M25 inside of it. And hence, that's what happened.
I love this because there's so much that you take for granted here, but there's proper thought into the whole thing.
No, I mean, one of the first chaps I wanted to invest was a guy called Laurie Barrett Homes. And he didn't in the end because he wanted 50% and he wanted control. I said, I'm not doing that, it's my baby. Anyway, cut a long story short, he said to me, and I will never forget it, location, location, location. And you've got to be in the right place. And so that's why I picked these arterial roads just inside the M25, which I knew was coming.
Smart, really smart. And talking about David Lloyd, as we know it, being your baby, you've ultimately sold the business a long time ago now.
Didn't want to.
I was going to ask you that.
Didn't want to. It was an incredible journey, and we actually changed how the city worked because I love cars. And I bought a Testarossa all those years ago. And so I used to go into the city in this Testarossa, and my Flemings, who were my merchant banker, said, oh, you can't come in with a Ferrari. He said, the shareholders. I said, well, actually, the shareholders should be pleased, because if I can afford a Ferrari, they're in good hands. And so I used to come in, to all the meetings in the city in a tracksuit. So we changed everything.
Again, so ahead of your time. Love it.
So the other thing we did was, the first AGM we had, because we're a public company, we had it in London, it was empty. So I said, well, you know what? Next year we're doing the AGM in one of the clubs. And so it was full, because the people who invested, it was oversubscribed 20 times. It was oversubscribed, I think, by the members of the clubs, because they loved the clubs. And so we put it out, we made a whole day of it, and suddenly the whole club was full with AGM, and which is unheard of. And so it was we changed the system.
Yeah. So the whole thing is your brainchild. You put it together. Your name is above it, and then we sort of touched on the fact that you've come out of this. You didn't want to sell it. Well, but your name's still on the door now, right? They've obviously felt that that's the brand that's lasted. And
well, when we floated, the 3 weeks before we floated, Liz Holt, who was the Flemings lady, said, you'd have a table as big as this room we're in, and it would be full of lawyers, which I'm not a great fan of lawyers. One of them sparked up, oh, we've got 3 weeks to go, it's called your name, who owns it? I said, well, I own it. So suddenly there was pandemonium because we were floating a company that didn't own my name. I did. So we had to concoct what was called a name deed. So we did a 25-year name deed. And so that's how they got to have the license and everyone was happy. So that's how that happened.
Out of context, can I just ask you, when you book a restaurant, when you book a holiday or anything, and you give your name, does anyone tell me, what, the David Lloyd?
Yes, quite often actually. It does, it happens.
They probably still assume you own the club as well. Can I get a discount? Can I get...
No, the greatest thing, I had a guy come to me and he said, I'm a golf pro, I run a driving range, but I need a job. His name was Keith Furphy and his dad was a famous football manager. I said, yeah, so I liked him, so I put him on reception, and he was so good, he became the marketing director, and he was great success. And what he did, one of his greatest marketing projects, and I don't know if you remember it, we did a deal with all the London taxis. We had 8 clubs, and we gave 8 cabbies from that area free membership, and they put the David Lloyd Club. So we had 64 taxis driving around London with my name on it. So, and it was great. And they had membership forms in there, and it was for nothing because we gave memberships and they gave the cab. So it was the greatest marketing tool of all time. But you walk through London, you could be run over by your name.
That's true. But again, it's almost like not quite influencer marketing, but so much of what you're saying, I didn't know this at all. It was again, like you said, ahead of your time.
I think it was just common sense.
And they stood the test of time. There's countless
Absolutely.
people in the office where we're filming here today.
We've got a million members, David Lloyd Leisure.
Yeah. And have you got any association with it now? What's
no,
your...
well, my eldest son is still a main board director, non-exec, because he runs British tennis now.
Cool. As you said, yeah. So what is David Lloyd doing now? What is busy in your days?
I am very busy. I do a few consultancies, and I've got a new project which I really believe in. It's we've called it Sports Gardens, and we are combining the new sports of the world, and we have a game in America called, I'm English and I'm very British and I'm going to probably come back and live here, but pickleball in America is going like this.
And paddle here.
Padel is going like that.
And is it padel?
Padel.
Right, I've been calling it paddle, and
Well,
most
no,
people
it's
around me...
because it's Spanish. It's actually from Argentina. So what will happen, and tends to happen with America and Britain, that we normally have to catch them up, and we do eventually. So I just got a feeling these two will converge at some stage, and therefore I believe the perfect project would have both of them in the same place. And they're both noisy. Pickle's actually more noisy than padel. But again, if you take the squash analogy, if you don't have other things, they won't last long. So I think you need all the other things. So we're basically doing sport with incredible activities for kids. We've got go-karting, we've got zip lines, we've got a roller glider that goes 50 kilometers an hour, we've got soft play. So it's a massive, great, it's everything under one roof, indoor and outdoor. And you've got the sport and you've got the kids having fun, I'm a great believer in families. It's a destination, yeah.
And where will the first one be?
It's actually in America in a place called Boca Raton. We've got the first site there. Then we're looking at here. We're looking everywhere because it will go very well. And we're making what's happened. The food content of these places now is going much higher. Food is a massive.
You're so right. It's not burger and chips. It completely contradicts what you're doing.
It's gone the opposite.
Yeah, because if you're coming to get fit and to be active and do stuff, you probably don't want that kind of food. And
you need all the sports clubs need all the health stuff. I mean, the clubs we built in Australia, which when we left David Lloyd Leisure, we started Next Generation, and my son started here. I wasn't allowed to do it here for a year, so I said to him, "These are some names of people. I think they will give you the money. I can't help." So we concocted this clever idea. So my son met these people with a cardboard cutout of me, and he sat him down on the chair. And this is true. So you laugh because you don't think it's true, but it is. So my son would say, Dad can join us when he's free to do so. And so he raised 25 million within 3 weeks. And so that's how Next Generation started. I went to Australia and I did Australia and that went great. And then the two combined. And then obviously Next Generation brought back David Lloyd Leisure.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Thank you for explaining that.
It's a good story.
It is a really good story. And again, sort of just listening to how you do things, there's, from the tracksuits to the Testarossa to the cardboard cutout, your son's taken a leaf out of your, but being innovative.
It was just natural, really. I mean, it was such a stupid thing to say you can't. So he just said he will join you, and he just showed the cardboard cutout.
But it's improvising. It's very entrepreneurial, which I really love. And I think just again talking about how things have changed and that sort of movement of times, I'd love to know how you prioritise and have prioritised your own physical fitness away from tennis and mental fitness, and how you've seen that become a much more important part of the game. And of course, it's so related to business as well.
No, I mean, I was very lucky. When I was a young aspiring player, I was very lucky to actually live in the same house with a guy called John Barrett, and Ken Rosewall used to stay there, who was one of the greats of all time. And we used to talk at tennis and stuff. And he said to me something I didn't really understand. And he said, tennis is 90% in the head. And you know what? He's right. And he is right, and he will ever be. So.
And he said that back then.
Said back then.
That's serious insight, right?
Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, Djokovic has all the talents in the world, but his best talent is the fact that his mind is the strongest. So when he's tired, his mind tells him he's not tired. And that's the difference. So the ones that don't have that, they're tired when they're not tired because they want to be tired. So the mental strength of a player is absolutely enormous, and it is the biggest part of anybody. I think in sport is the mental side, and you've got to be very strong mentally.
And so for you had that advice at a really important time, and have you worked on that? What do you do to keep, I guess, what I'd call mentally fit? Are you listening to podcasts? It feels to me like one of the ways you keep mentally fit is you're very active, you're very busy. So there's no retirement for David Lloyd, if you know what I mean, which I think is a key driver, gives you purpose. But is there anything you do that kind of stimulates you and you sort of would swear by that keeps you mentally fit?
No, but I do. I think naturally do it. I just, I visualise a lot.
Just by doing it.
I visualise. I visualise what's going to happen. I don't give in. So you eventually make it. But when I was
find a way.
Yeah, and when these young kids, when we were bringing them up, the Tim Henmans of this world. But I'll tell you a good story about. I'm at the club playing with Elton John because we basically learnt tennis in our club, and we're sitting around one morning, and he turned around to me. And he said, you know what, I can't remember, a few years ago, I can't remember 9 years of my life. And he went into tennis, and Billie Jean King got him into tennis. And he was sitting there, and I said, I've got some young kids that I'm really helping with tennis. And he said, how much do you want? I said, well, 25 grand would be nice. So he basically wrote a check out on the spot for 25 grand for the scheme, because, it was and he then signed pictures of him and gave to the kids. So, he loved tennis. I mean, tennis saved his life. So all those things, yeah. And he was he loves his tennis.
So there's community there. There's the physical side of this. No, that's a brilliant story.
He's a good player. I mean, as long as you got to feed it to him, but he whacks it and runs, and he never gives in. The people who have made it, Cliff Richard the same. Even in Tony Blair, I nearly killed Tony Blair on a tennis court. We're playing, and we had a fantastic game that day because he was in the house that I built in Barbados for Cliff, and he's playing, and he said, those drills you do for Henman, can I do one? I said, Tony, I don't think you should be doing that. These are brutal. They said, I want to do it. So
I love the fact that he was aspiring to be.
No, he never gave it. So I gave this drill, and this is a killer, I promise you it is. So I'm feeding him, and he looks like I get a flash up thinking, oh my goodness me, tomorrow's headlines, Lloyd kills Blair. So anyway, so I get it, and he's like that. So
is he PM at the time?
Sorry?
Is he the Prime Minister at the time?
PM, yeah, absolutely. So I'm thinking, oh my
yeah.
Anyway,
That
so
would be a headline.
We finish it, and he comes up and he said, let me have a drink. He said, can I do that again? So the reason I'm telling the story is the people who succeed, they never give in. It doesn't matter what they do, they never give in. If they're tired, they never give in. They carry on. And
find a way,
is a real
pivot.
Skill in business, in sport, in anything in life. You've got to believe it, and you must never give in.
Love that. Sitting here now, successful yourself, and having been around so many successful people, many you just named, how do you define success? Your definition.
Success, in my opinion, is knowing you've given 100%. If you give 100%...
So leave nothing on the table.
And you might lose, but if you've given 100%, you can look yourself in the mirror and you know you achieved it.
Love that. David, you are awesome to talk with. I know you're busy and you're over from the States. You come over to film with me today. Thank you so much. I've learned so much and it's gone far too quick. But David, thank you.
Thank you.